Your daily escape is brought to you by me, Cassie, with Oddball Escapes. You're planning a trip to Costa Rica, and I bet one of your top must see things is a sloth. Whether you're visiting the eastern coast or the western coast, or if you're staying in the central area, it would be hard to travel for a week in Costa Rica and not see a sloth in the wild. However, you have to know what you're looking for, and that's where local guides are key. Sloths live in the trees and they're hard to spot because they blend in, but also because they don't move much and they don't make a lot of noise. And they'll most likely be sleeping during the day. I mean, they tend to sleep 18 hours a day. So I suggest you sign up for a guided walk through the rainforest trails, or head out on a canoe or kayak with a local guide, or even take one of those motorized safari boats through the water trails. Guides are great because they know the types of trees that sloths prefer, and they'll help you spot them in the wild. And maybe they'll help you see some other wildlife along the way, such as monkeys. If you want a 100% chance of seeing a sloth, wildlife rescue centers are a great place to visit. Plus, they may allow you to get up close to these animals. Out of the 6 sloth species in the world, 2 of them are in Costa Rica, the two-toed sloth and the three-toed sloth. Neither of these 2 species are endangered. You might get to see a baby sloth during your visit. That would make your day, wouldn't it? Speaking of babies, a baby sloth will stay with its mother for about a year. The baby rides on its mother's belly as they climb through the trees. And sloths don't really live together, so after about a year, they head out on their own. They live typically about 12 years in the wild. How does an animal that's so slow survive in the wild for that long? Take a look at this guy's head. Notice the color of its fur? It's slightly green. Well, sloths are so sedentary that green algae grows on their fur. I read that there's an entire ecosystem growing in their fur, a mix of algae, fungi, mites, moths, and other things. Ugh. But this is a good thing for a sloth. It camouflages them in the trees. Of course, it makes them harder to see by predators, but it also makes them hard to smell. The algae helps them smell like the trees. And if a predator happens to stumble upon a sloth, well, the more algae, the more unappetizing that sloth looks. Okay, when a sloth is hanging out in the trees, it is literally hanging. Their claws are like hooks, and it doesn't require any muscle power to hang from the branches. It's effortless. They don't come down from the trees often, but when they do, let's talk about this. If you see a sloth on the ground, well, let's say it for what it is. It's probably pooping. Yep, scientists aren't sure why they don't just poop from the treetops, but they don't. They make their way down to the ground about once a week. Yes, once a week. Their digestive system is so slow that it can take 1 to 2 weeks to fully digest a meal. Well, that explains why they don't do much and why they sleep so much. They're conserving energy. Here's another thing. When they're on the ground, this is when they are most vulnerable to predators. Going to the bathroom can be life-threatening, and it's the cause of about half of adult sloth mortalities in the wild. Ugh. Here's something else that's cool. These three-toed sloths, like in this picture, they can rotate their heads up to 300 degrees. It's a great way to see predators approaching, but hopefully they have enough time to get to safety. On the upside, they're great swimmers. They can move much faster in the water. But your best bet to seeing a sloth on your trip to Costa Rica is to scan the treetops. Keep your eyes open and your ears listening for a slight rustling of the leaves.